Blue Channel people have rich culture that is related to ocean organisms. The bulk of their food came from the sea, clams and urchins collected near the shorelines, salmon caught from canoes as well as in and around spawning streams in fall, halibut fished in deep water far offshore, and the sea mammals such as whales, seals, and porpoise all hunted canoes. This fish diet was supplemented by flesh of the sea mammals. Land animals such as deer, bear, small rodents, and elk were hunted and occasionally trapped. Roots, berries, fruits, and seaweed added to the Nutkin diet. According to some Nuchangnoth legends, the great blue heron first taught people to stand, have self-confidence, and because it hunts food so well, it said it was taught humans how to hunt for fish. The great blue heron was thought to symbolize balance, grace, and focus. For some, the crane is considered a guardian as it cries out loudly to warn strangers of approaching. The Nukta were fishermen and whalers. Salmon was the most stable food source and was obtained in large numbers in fall and stored for winter months. Herring and salmon roe, cod, halibut, sardines, and herring complemented salmon supplies. Seals, sea lions, whales, and porpoise were also important food sources. Whales were valued for the ceremonial use as well. Many Nuka returned to aboriginal coastal villages during their summer months to enjoy the pleasure of going home to fish and to hunt and gather plant and seafoods. Reliable food preservation techniques were vital to maintain adequate food supplies during winter months as well as in lean periods. Herrings and sardines, for example, were eaten as fresh as well as dried and smoked. The Pacific Ocean was the main source of food for the people, and therefore the men spent a lot of time fishing along the coast and became very skilled fishermen. Wooden fishing weirs were placed in rivers and tattle fish traps were used in the sea. Nets, hooks, lines, herring wrecks, gigs, fishing spears, and harpoons, as well as dip nets for smaller fish, such as smelt, were also used. Offshore fishing was done with hooks made from straight pieces of wood, to which were attached bone barbs and short lines of deer or whale sinew. These lines were sometimes attached to the end of the paddles with hook baited with small herring. This fisherman would paddle the canoe through the water, keeping the bait in motion. There are two types of fishing spears. One had bone barbs set on the inside of two prongs of tough springy wood. The force of the strike caused the two prongs to spring open and slide over the body of the fish. The inner barb then held it securely. The other type was used for larger fish, also has two prongs, one of which part of the shaft while the other was shorter and was attached at an angle to form unsymmetrical Y shape. Both prongs were fitted with deadable bone points to which a line was attached. When a strike was made, the shaft could be disengaged, leaving the fisherman with both hands free to haul in the catch. Halibut, were plentiful off the west coast of Vancouver Island and were usually caught by trolling. Both halibut and cod were also caught by a simple method of setting out long lines with float attached to mark the positions. The hooks were made from tough springy part of fur or yew, steamed and bent in shape of a U. A bone barb was fixed inside the cone arm. Fish lines were made from kelp, which had been soaking in fresh water and rubbed with oil. With stone stinker attached to the line, the hooks were trailed through the water at considerable depth. Sea otter, are highly prized creatures of the sea because they were hard to catch. Only expert hunters were able to hunt them. In Nuchangnoth tradition, they represented resourcefulness, intelligence, and playfulness. Sea otters were taken by several methods. In the water, they were spread by the means of long, double-pronged spears with detachable points similar to that used for spearing fish. On land, split logs were placed at the base of steep rocks down which the seals slid on their way to water. The seals, being impaled by these and thus tethered, were quickly dispatched by clubs or by bow and arrow. Seal skins, when properly removed, could be made into oil containers or into large floats that could be used as whaling operations. The stomachs were used to make small fishing floats. The sea otter harpoon is made similar to whale harpoon. The points made of mussel shells are 4 inches long. On each side of the point, 1.5 inches from tip thereof, a deer antler is attached by means of sinew to form barbs. The harpoon line is tied to lashing around the barbs. See Figure 40. Porpoise, hit, swim. For capturing this porpoise, the same kind of harpoon outfit is used as in fur seal hunting. A fishing trip for porpoise is never prearranged. The animal is only gone after it is seen in passing. After one is struck, it is pulled along the side of a canoe and hit over the head with a club, the same kind of club as used in sea otter hunting. Every part of porpoise is eaten except for entrails. Some fat is rendered by boiling process. The skin is thrown away. Crab. Hatsamat. The usual way of catching crabs is by spearing them at low tide. The spear is simply a 12-foot pole about 1.5 inch in diameter with one end sharply pointed. The wood is usually that of a yew tree. Sea urchin, tutsu, were collected by women and slaves, along with crabs and other shellfish, seaweed, clams, oysters, and mussels. Sea urchins are taken from water with long pronged pole. These prongs, 4 in number, are made of yew wood and tied to the end of the stick with a thong. Sea urchins are prepared like clams. Clams, were gathered and dried too, but Nootka didn't rely on these to the same extent as most other coastal people. The large mussels were found so abundantly along the west coast that it took their place. The women prepared them by roasting them in their shells and sticking them in large wooden skewers. No further preparation is required, although sometimes they are dipped in oil for sauce. Dogfish, yetcha, were not a traditional food source for New Chungus people, but in modern times were valued for their oil. The dogfish skin is also prized and used as sandpaper for smoothing the wood on canoes, so they would be quick and quiet in the water. Rendering dogfish oil is accomplished by boiling. The boiling process, while productive of some oil, is principal means of softening the flesh. The boiled fish, when wrapped in cedar bag, is placed on a rack with grating top and pressed flat with stones so that the oil drips in the container. This is boiled again, skimmed, and preserved as a delicious food. The residue in snacks is eaten only when rations are scarce. Herring, tismit, start to run about beginning of February. Seagulls are accustomed to hover over a school of herring. Consequently, natives watch carefully for a sight of such birds. Lowering the net at proper time and in proper manner is no easy task. There are 4 ways of preparing herring. Raw, for quick delicious lunch, a fresh fish steamed by starting at the tail and working to the head is eaten raw. Roasted, a convenient stick about 2 feet long, thrust through the eye of the herring is held near the fire. When the fish is well roasted, the bones are easily removed, and the flesh is eaten with fingers. Sometimes the flesh, free of bones, is served in a seaweed bowl. Boiled. The fish is put in a wooden bucket filled with water, then hot stones are dropped in the water until the fish is boiled. Dried. The fish is cut open, cleaned, and then hung up to dry, either in the house, outside the sun. Herring spawn. Quackamis. In the early part of March, herring begins to spawn in inland waters. They cut many spruce and fir branches and heap them into a huge pile on the beach. Then they load these branches to their canoes and take them to spawning grounds. They put these branches onto the water, tie them to the spawning fences. Some of these branches are tied at the bottom to the rock and placed in more shallow water for spawning grounds. 4 poles are placed around each branch. Boards are placed over these cross pieces and stones are put on top of them to weigh them down. When the herring spawn, the fish eggs stick to these branches. The branches make it easy for men to collect tiny fish once it has dried. They take the branches and climb onto the racks. They hang the large branches over the rack and spread them out carefully so the spawn can dry in the sun and the wind. When the spawn is dry, they free it from the needles off of the branches. The women prepare fish in two ways. Some fish are eaten fresh, like when the spawn or the fish are caught that day, but most of it is always dried and saved for winter months. They fill a huge cedar box with water. A fire is built and large rocks are placed in the flames. When the rocks are very hot, they put them into the box filled with water. The hot rocks will heat the water and make it boil. When fish are done, the women take them out of the boiling water, split them, remove the bones, and hang them out to dry. After everything is done, all racks are lining in the beach, and they have more than 1,000 fish waiting to dry. The Nootka were very skilled fishermen and whalers. Marine animals show up in stories and ceremonies and are important sources of food and connect Nuu-chah-nulth people with life in the sea. Animals play an important role in their community because they express life in many ways.